it's through reward or through language or environment, and pay more attention to actually how I do use it.
Okay.
And of course, for what the motivation is, my motivation, and what's my agenda for any kind of control. And the other one is the other end.
That's pretty risky and interesting.
If I definitely control the room,
right.
But I really want to know what I'm really up to. And the other side of the control is to give it over to them. And so I definitely will set up situations for the students to work with each other more, and in particular, something I just thought about that I've never really had them do, because I do for them, is redo someone's work, someone else's. Instead of me saying, move this, move that.
Right.
To actually, what I would like to do this Friday is I'm going to have them, after they finish a project, and we critique it, is say, now you swap, and redo someone's work, and what would you change in it? And then somebody would say, well, I would have done this or that. I'll probably find out that they would do it reluctantly because they don't want to touch somebody's work, but they would change it in a way they didn't even mention in the crit.
Right.
So that's what I...
Okay. Kim?
I've decided to throw out my grade book.
I don't believe you.
I like the idea of more student-led exercises. I've done this to a degree so far, and the response has been good. I haven't done it enough, I don't think. So I'd like to work more of that into the classes. And I'm in a situation where I might be able to, in the academic skills thing, to actually let a student or two teach a portion of the class. So I think that could be really interesting and a little bit risky.
And we know ourselves, but that there's no way to learn, better way to learn material than by having to teach it yourself. Yeah. So it's a great tool.
I tried that.
I should change my mind.
I asked somebody. No. It's good if you can get somebody with sufficient courage to do it. I asked somebody to come up and explain their solution. It was a good solution to an Excel problem. I can't do that in the sphere of public speaking, so I didn't push it. But what I have to look at my control too. When I'm teaching Excel, I mean, there's a lot of mechanics involved in Excel, and I think sometimes I hold on too tightly when I'm showing them the mechanics and say, here's the book. You can find out how to do it in the book. Here's the problem. Now, here's what you need to know. Here's the logic. I can tell them why Excel does what it does, but I have to let them read. They can read the book as well as I can.
Yes, that's right.
So you read the book, you learn the mechanics, here's the function you have to use, and here are some ways you need to use it. Now you figure out what the mechanics of doing that are. Here's the problem. So I give them lots of word problems.
Richard Paul says, don't be a mother bird chewing the stuff up and then putting it in their mouth,
Yeah.
which I'm very good at doing.
Oh, so am I.
But, and I tried to model that a little bit. Rather than telling you guys, it's like, go look at this stuff, read it, and, what are you getting out of it? I don't lecture out of the textbook. I have them develop what are the questions from the objectives and then go look for the answers. That's a much better use of an hour's worth of time than talking with them.
That's what I do too. I say we're in this part of the book, then I start to talk, and I shouldn't say I don't ever lecture out of the book, but I rarely lecture out of the book, and they keep waiting for me to say, all right, here's the book, and then we start going through the book. It's not college learning.
Good. Diane, what kind of thing could you do from this course?
Well, I definitely agreed with the control, reevaluating purposes behind why can't I let them do some of that. And like I mentioned earlier, just coming up with different options as ways that they can work on things. And, it's interesting because before I was here, I used to teach middle school, and I would have real life projects, and here I just haven't done any of that. And I'm thinking back, well, why not? Why can't I use some of those tools? I mean, I teach pre-algebra, and, I used to have them do projects where they would actually take pictures and then come up with their own problems with some criteria as to what would go with that particular thing of something out in the real world, and tell me how to do the problem. And so I'm thinking about bringing some of that kind of stuff back into here.
How did your middle school students respond to that?
Very well. I mean, I taught an 8th grade course where we would go to Six Flags or something, and there would be a science component for each thing. But I would tell them they didn't have to carry a clipboard for me, but a camera, and they would have to take 5 pictures, and because of course they have a camera, and take pictures and come back, and they had to use the Pythagorean theorem in something. So they had to use different things and come up with the picture, and then create a problem to go with it. That would be relevant.
Yeah, it's
Solve
also
it.
really the kinesthetic learner, the visual learner. You're really hitting a lot of types.
And they had to be multi-step problems at that level. They couldn't be just a picture of a soda. How much did I pay? It had to be an actual.
So some structure, but then
they had some
within that
criteria to meet
structure-
within it, but it was all up to them as to what they chose and how they applied it. So I think I need to look back at those kind of things and see, why am I not doing that now?
I do. Any thoughts about things you can take from this hour?
I teach French, so I feel like it detached to what is shared here, because here you are trying to teach a language, and unless the students are motivated, most of the time they're not part of it, like the grammatical structure. That can be very boring for most of the time. So you have to come up with you have to like quit the subject. You have to detach yourself from that structure to create some environment where students can think of something else, which is not just that structure.
The structure of learning French?
No, I'm talking about grammar. When you talk when you teach grammar. When you teach
grammar.
grammar, it's like very mathematical. It's like theories.
Right.
And it can be very boring, very hard to understand. I'm just taking the example of this term. I teach intermediate levels here in New Paltz, 4 classes, and I spend most of the time I teach grammar. And I did realize that it gets very heavy and hard to digest. So I come up with games, and I think, and I go back to my time when I was studying English. I think the motivation of learning was reinforced by the teacher. I think knowing that I'm interested, I'm motivated to pinpoint me. He got me motivated. He was always referring to me. And I tried to bring that to class. I think students need that one-to-one experience, one-to-one kind of connection. To get the motivation, to get, okay, he knows that I'm here. He wants me to get this.
Yes, that's right.
That's just one
That's one of
aspect
the things students respond to is caring. And, they're talking about the caring about the subject. Ted,
Well, the two were focus on beauty, utility, or intrigue. And, with some of the material, focusing on the utility is fairly, natural. So that was something that I took away to try and see what they think is utility from the subjects that we're learning. And then the other one was giving them more control, like everybody else, of course. But in terms of when we do projects, to give them more control. And I guess maybe even going beyond choosing the subject of the project, but also, how they're going to approach it, all that kind of stuff. Give them the control and provide them with the assistance to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
But how to do that is hard.
Are
but
important. I think erecting a framework, erecting the structure, and then letting freedom within that structure, I think, is very key. Well, hopefully this wasn't an hour where you sat and went, oh, I can hardly wait until this gets over.
Can I participate? I just wanted to add one thing that through the reading that I want to add to mine is having them make findings, because my students are always finding stuff out for me that I didn't know was out there, to really change my position. I'm not the sage, I'm really the facilitator, and when they are sharing stuff with me, I want that to be sharing for everybody, and so that I'm going to have them do interviews, and they already are telling me all kinds of stuff I didn't know, so yeah, it's good.
You're teaching a class